All right, we are back on Morning Line. That's our final guest, our final segment this morning with our guest from Takacs and McGinnis. This is Chris Johnson, attorney over there with them. It's good to have you on, sir.
It's good to be here.
Appreciate it. We've got the lines open. If you want to jump in, we'll probably have time to get a few more calls. 737-7587, talking, as I said, again about elder law. We will go next to Wayne. Good morning, Wayne.
Yeah, good morning, Nick. I appreciate the time. I know it is valuable to you.
Sure, it's good to hear you.
I need some advice. I'll make it quick. I've got an 86-year-old friend that owns property in Rutherford County. Now, it was under Greenbelt, and he wanted to give the property to his daughter. He decided to quit claim the property. Rutherford County decided to roll over, and now he was paying $60 a year when he was grandfathered in. Now they want him to pay over $600 a year plus 2-year rollover. Can you give me advice on how we can correct this and go back the way it was?
Do you need to ask him some questions? Do you understand what he's referring to?
No, I understand. He's referring to the Greenbelt exemption. And what happened is it sounds as though that it was pulled out of the Greenbelt status when it was quit claimed, and so there's the tax hit has gone up. And what you want to do is you want to reach out to an attorney, and you want to go in there and say, here are the, because I don't have the exact deeds in front of me to review and say, okay, how do we need to do this? But you want to get that to an attorney sooner rather than later, have them go through it and provide you with some options, because again, there's going to be more than one way to solve the problem.
You think there's a way to get it down from the 600?
Well, that's what I'm hoping. I never want to say in absolute terms that yes, that can be resolved or cannot be resolved. My guess is there is a solution out there in order to probably reestablish the Greenbelt status, but that is something that, you know, these kind of problems aren't like wine. They don't get better with age. You want to get that before an attorney and a real estate attorney as quickly as possible and have them deal with that. And what I would do is I would encourage them, knowing the age of the client at this point, is not only that, but look at how that fits into the totality of their estate plan, because there's probably a better way to do it and a worse way to do it as far as their current status and making sure that all of their stuff is prepared. You don't want to do this stuff piecemeal. I always say it's like an orchestra. You want every part of your life to be on the same sheet of music and moving in the same direction. And so yes, we want to fix this problem, but that's what happens is sometimes we get tunnel vision. Well, all of a sudden we deeded this property over and it's causing a big problem. Okay, but what else are we trying to do? What's your estate plan? Do we have all the things in place? Is this furthering your interests? Are we protecting your assets? Are we doing everything that we can for the individual to ensure that they are in the best position possible? And so yes, this problem needs to be solved, but more importantly, you need to zoom out and kind of look at that 30,000-foot view and see how this problem fits into the bigger picture, because sometimes you can win the battle and lose the war. We can solve this problem and create a myriad of others if we aren't doing it with a larger view.
Does that help some, Wayne?
Yeah, it does, because my friend, he's concerned. He said, I'm not paying a dime more than what I did. Yeah. And he's just basically saying, you know, it'll go away if I don't pay attention.
Okay.
That's his attitude, and I'm afraid something's going to happen.
Well, you got it. Now listen, Wayne, stick around, and what we'll do at the end of the program, we will have the number up for Takacs and McGinnis. Obviously, you guys handle that stuff, don't you?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, that's what they do. And so stay tuned so you can get that number, pass it to them. If they do call, you know, they can make the call. And as most law offices, the consultation's free to say what they need, and you guys kind of say, well, this is what we can look at, and then you move forward if they decide to do it, right?
Yeah, that initial phone call, they call, there's no charge for them to call in and get an appointment set up and kind of give, here are the criteria of what's happening.
Yeah, but you've already heard from him saying that clearly there's something that can be, look, I think this would be money well spent. You go to do that, and every legal thing that you guys deal with varies depending on how complex it is, the costs. Right. But he's going from $60 to $600, you know, and who knows if he ignores it, like you said. I like that. It's not like a fine wine. It doesn't get better with time. It may just turn to vinegar. So,
well, and that last comment I did want to chime in on. It scares me a little bit. These problems don't go away way. And when you ignore them, you'd never ignore the health malady. You know, if you had a real bad pain in your chest, so you're going to get that checked out. This is probably a problem that is easily correctable, or certainly correctable in some manner to make it a little bit better now. But if you wait 3 or 4 or 5 years, all of a sudden you may get to a situation where we can't fix it, or the cost of fixing it just becomes too insurmountable, and that gets troubling. Ignoring legal problems never makes them better. Never, never, never.
That's true in all types of things with legal problems, not just this kind of stuff. He's right. So Wayne, get the number, pass it on, tell him to call, say, yeah, you're watching MorningLine, and Nick Beres said to call, and can you help me? And you'll be there too, right?
We'll be there
who knows?
too.
You may end up talking to Chris. Let's go next to Jack. Jack, good morning. Hi, Jack.
Hey, good morning, gentlemen. How you doing?
Good morning. How can we help you, sir?
This is a quick question. We're both my wife and I both passed into that era that they call the elderly.
What age is that? What age is that?
Past 65.
Oh, you're okay. All right, go ahead.
Okay, the question I've got is this. My wife has gotten several blood draws from a certain corporation, and I won't name them specifically just for legal reasons. The other thing is, we got a letter from Nashville Adjustment Bureau recently stating we owed them a rather small amount of money. And the only thing we can figure on this is that this company that has drawn her blood has also drawn our ire, because they're charging us an amount that we don't even have on our EOB or statement of service from our insurance company. But they sent this notice over and over and over and over again this last year. So I'm wondering, legally, what can we do to erase this and get it off of our record? And is it even valid? I've never even heard these people before.
Well, let me chime in there. There's a little bit of missing information. So the first thing I would do is, if you're having these medical blood draws taken and somehow the insurance company, your insurance, is not recognizing them, the first thing I do is I reach out to them and I get a customer service representative on the line, and I ask, how can I forward these demands for payment to you, and have them validate. That's always the first thing. Verify and validate that this is an actual cost you owe before anything else, because that's how and I'm not saying this one is a scam or isn't a scam. I don't know.
But I was thinking the same thing, Chris. I was thinking the same thing.
They think by volume. If they send you enough letters, you'll eventually just, we'll just pay it. And they put it at an amount where they're like, they'll likely just to say it's not worth the hassle of getting all these letters, and that's what they want to do. And then when your insurance company, if they do, let's say they do validate it and verify it, then at least you'll have an understanding, okay, why do we have this cost? Why are we facing this cost? How do we avoid this cost in the future, or do we have any alternatives? And then you can start planning ahead. If you need these blood draws or other procedures in the future, how do you avoid getting stuck with a bill if it is legitimate? And if it isn't legitimate, well, you've saved yourself a whole lot of problems. But at the end of the day, that's where you start. You start with that insurance company, and you say, that insurance company works for you. They're your service provider when it comes to that, and it's their job to take a look at that bill and say, hey, yes, this is something you owe, or no, this is something we owe. And then remember, you can always appeal it with the insurance company if you think it is something. If they say, yes, this is a legitimate debt, maybe it is something that the policy needs to be looked at. Maybe they really should be reimbursing you for it. I always kind of say, you never give up the fight. They keep sending you letters. Well, you can keep fighting on your end as well to try and get the best result for you.
Does that make sense to you?
That makes a whole lot of sense, and I appreciate your help this morning.
Listen, thank you for your call, and I understand where you're coming from, where he's coming from, asking that question. I get those same kind of things sometimes, and you're absolutely right. I'm sure I've been taken before where I said, I just don't want to deal with it. It's not that much money. I'll
write the check.
Not that I made of money, trust me. But I mean, I've probably done that, but I think that is just really good information for him, and it's basic stuff. Sometimes you just need someone to tell you. I'm sure that maybe that occurred to him, but I think a really important thing is to validate it, because I was thinking the same thing. So good advice, good advice. I hope that works out for you, Jack. Just get those answers, but on the other hand too, don't stress it out. A lot of people, they worry it's going to be on our record. You're 65, and you don't want your credit screwed up, obviously, but find out the details before you really spend a lot of time worrying about something like that too. Don't stress yourself out. Let's squeeze in Bruce if we can real quick. Hi, Bruce.
Yes.
Good morning. Go ahead, buddy.
My mother just passed away, and her will is messed up, and what they're trying to do is bring. She wanted us 4 youngest kids to get the money of the property, and they're trying to bring my sister 2 kids in on it, and she didn't want that.
Is it in the will or not?
No, it don't have them stated.
So they're trying to challenge the will.
Right. Well, they really ain't. They ain't said nothing about it, but the lawyer's saying that they should get some part. But
well, maybe they can get. Okay. I'll let the lawyer here answer that. But I'm saying if that's the case, it's not in the will, then those 2 kids can get a part of their mother's share. That's the way I look at it. If it's not specified, if the will was done right, I'm sorry, the 2 kids shouldn't get any.
If the will, and so there's one question I would have wanted to know is.
He's still there.
Oh, are you still there?
Yeah.
Is your sister still living right now?
No, she's passed away.
That's the key. So my guess is at that point that the will has what's called shares by representation. And what that means is if a descendant, the first line of descendants, so you said you and your 3 siblings, we have 4 siblings, each takes a 25% share is what it sounds like the will says. I'm conjecturing a little here. If one of the siblings predeceases the testator in this point, your mother, then what happens is their children step into the shoes of their your passed away sibling, and they split that share. Now they don't take they shouldn't most likely take a larger share, although there is a possibility, there is a scenario where they could, but usually the most common one you see is if they have 2 children, they would step in and each take a 12.5% share. And I understand you think, well, no, she said, hey, us 4 children split the property, and that's very common. But what they don't, oftentimes what people don't want to do is cut out one line of descendants just because a tragedy happened. And whenever a parent loses a child before themselves, I think everyone would describe that as a tragedy.
Sure.
And so they don't want to leave those grandkids without. And so oftentimes there's a stipulation in the will that says by representation to ensure, because if it passed to your sister, 99% she probably would have ended up passing things on to her kids, so it kind of makes them whole. So that is not an unusual circumstance. Remember, you can always reach out to your own attorney, you can hire counsel, and which I always encourage people to do. It's the best way to ensure that your rights are protected, and they can review the will for you and take a look and see if that specific language actually exists in the will, and they can tell you if you're being taken, if you're not being taken. I will tell you, if the will is being probated in front of the chancery judge, at the end of the day, it's probably being done right. I feel very good about that. We have a wonderful court system and amazing judges, and if it's before them, I have a hard time thinking that it's being handled wrong.
Man, that was great advice. I didn't even think of what you suggested. The only way she could have gotten away with it is if she wrote the will saying, listen, I'm leaving it to all 4 of my kids, and if one of those kids dies, I want to stipulate specifically that it's cut into 3rds instead of 4ths.
And that's a possibility, but it doesn't sound like she did that.
If she didn't do that, and so it makes sense. It means the kids of the deceased will get their quarter share, likely is how that'll work out. I'll tell you what, I was wondering when, Tim sent another attorney, someone new, did he send an ace? He got one. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks so much for having me.
I'll be back with information on contact for Tim Takacs right after this.
It's our buy one, get one.